We touched on this at the end of the last show because the report dropped right around the time we were going on the air after the Raptors game, and what
Right.
we heard is that there was like a physical altercation. I don't even remember. Did the original report say that a punch was thrown?
No, they just said a physical altercation, but they never said
Yeah.
anything about
So
to
it,
that
it
extent.
kind of got underplayed. They were saying, "Oh, we might not even suspend Draymond," and it seemed like it was going to get handled in house. Then TMZ today throws a video out there, and this was a flying, vicious, uh, all out. I don't know if you can refer to it as a sucker punch because Poole kind of pushed him at first, but it was an all out punch. Poole got to move back a little bit in preparation, but if he took the load of that shot, that was broken jaw. That might have been even worse if he took the brunt of that punch from Green. Just a vicious punch. I don't know what was behind this. We don't know what's really gone on this team or between these two. There's the contract thing that I alluded to there, but I don't know what is going on here. And this is just the end of a weird offseason where the Warriors have had to kind of pick between three guys who need new contracts. Green has kind of made his case for like this new max deal. And again, like I have no clue what's behind this, but just kind of a crazy move from Green in practice. This stuff happens. I guess what Steve Kerr famously got punched by Jordan, and we had who was the guy on the Bulls there a couple years ago? Bobby Portis punched Mirotic. So
Mirotic,
this
yeah.
stuff happens, but to see
And
it
then he was
on
traded right after.
video, just as aggressive of a shot as he was taking here at his teammate, I don't know what to make of this. And I think the Warriors are gonna have to take some kind of action here, and it might have to be strong action.
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to because this thing is out there now. Everyone has seen it, and no one knows the context of it. No one knows what was said, but obviously it doesn't look good, especially for Draymond Green because it just seemed like it wasn't a whole lot of pushing back and forth before he punched him, right in the face. It seemed like very quick, but the whole contract thing, I feel like I don't. Maybe that doesn't help their relationship, but from reports and from the past and from things that I'm hearing, these guys weren't always the closest of friends. So no one knows what the history of these two, but obviously whatever was said, that was the breaking point. And look, whatever Poole said, I don't think it's hard to justify warranting that sort of punishment, and especially everyone's going to point at Draymond and say, look, you're a veteran in this league, you've been here long enough. Jordan Poole hasn't been here for that long. He's much younger, and then people are now talking about the size difference and for But again, we don't know what was said. We don't know the context of it, but it just doesn't look good because on camera it just looks like Green snapped, and it looks like he
And
had an agenda from the beginning. I mean, it looked like he was pacing
yeah,
as if he was like, just if he just touches me, I'm gonna do this. It just seemed
yeah.
premeditated. But again, we don't know that. We don't know if it could have if something that was said triggered it. But again, from the outside looking in, it just doesn't look good for Draymond.
And I this whole past couple months here where we've gotten a longer look at Draymond and he's made himself more vocal on the podcast, and we certainly got to see him kind of upfront and personal at the finals, whether it was him jarring back and forth with Max and Peyton, his podcast talk, and his spat with Brown. And I get the antics. Like, he's trying to get into people's heads. There's some mental games at play here. He
Right.
crosses lines at times to try to, I think, raise people up and get his team going and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
this
I
was
mean, this is a
clearly
guy who
beyond
got
that.
that's a good point actually, Bobby. This is a guy who got mad at Gary Payton because Gary was like, "Yeah, if you did some stuff like that when we were playing, somebody would have knocked you out," And him and
Was this him showing he could knock someone out too? I mean, this is
no, this is his.
crazy.
No, this is from what I took from it. From obviously I was right there. He's like, Your son plays for me. Like, Why would you say something like that about me, or why would you agree with him? You're supposed to agree with me." And it's just like, well, hold on a second, man. Like, I'm having a conversation with Cedric Maxwell. Like, I'm not a commentator. I'm not trying or whatever the case may be. He's like, look, I'm having an honest conversation, and you know the whole thing about what would have happened back then and all that stuff, and it just it feeds into the narrative that sometimes Draymond can draw the line. Sometimes he can, take things to an extreme level where he doesn't always get the consequences that he would receive, I guess, according to Gary and Max, back in the '90s or back in the '80s.
Yeah, and there's a benefit of the doubt given to him because of the winning and because of the success he's built defensively. His intensity out there
Yeah,
is
but there's also the other side of that, right, Bobby? Some people could say that would argue Draymond is the reason why the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead against the Cavaliers in
yeah, so
2016.
that's my point, like
He got himself suspended. He was in that this was the Draymond kicking people between the legs era. Like, you remember that? Like, it was like he did it like 2 times or 3 times throughout the regular season, and then with everything on the line in the finals, he did it again. And the NBA came down hard, gave him a 1-game suspension. That obviously was a loss for the Warriors leading into Game 7, and the rest is history. You know what happened? The Cavs went on to win.
it's a great
A lot of
point.
people say if they had him in that game, the Warriors come out of that series. They win.
Yeah, and, like, I just can't listen to him carry on about how important he is in all this and, talking like he's the reason they won the finals last year. I mean, he was dreadful through the start of that series, and he picked it up at the end when they were sorta getting on their roll. He had that great closer in Boston, but by that point, like, his teammates had already done the hard work. Curry carrying them through game 4, Clay hitting some big shots here or there. Wiggins certainly, I thought, had a Finals MVP
Yeah, you
case
know
in
what
his
it
own
was,
right.
Bobby? He was the goon. He
Yes.
was the goon.
So
He got guys riled up. He played head games with guys like Grant Williams and
and you know what?
guys that
I
matter
don't
too.
like it because he's one of the few guys that's allowed to play like that. There are certain people, it's almost expected out of him on the floor. Like, he's gonna get called that way, and he's gonna get
Yeah,
the benefit of the doubt because they're expecting him to act that way, where if Tatum slams a ball, he's gonna get teed up.
tech.
And I
Yeah.
still think he should have been ejected from that game too, for getting in that tie up with Brown after he had already picked up a first
Yeah, I
tech.
still don't think so, honestly. But I think if anything, he should have just fouled out. Like, the referees just swallowed the whistle so many damn times that it was like this dude has earned like 9 fouls, by the end of the game. And that to me was on the NBA. But I hear what you're saying though, because you want, and of course a lot of people want to see him receive consequences for the way he's been playing, for the dirty play, and for the borderline dirty, wherever you fall in the conversation. But
The
I
way he
bet
talks
most
to the
people would agree
refs.
that those are fouls.
Yeah.
Whether you say it's chippy or not, or unsportsmanlike or whatever you want to say, it's a foul, and a lot of those fouls weren't called.
So that's how I feel about Draymond. I do like that he speaks his mind and, he puts himself out there, but again, I feel like there's a lot of, uh, talking out of both sides of his mouth and flip-flopping on things and just, hypocrisy at times. Like, you had the thing on there when he was getting upset about Boston fans using profanity, and Clay was too, and then
Yeah,
Green earlier in the
your
playoffs
kid's
was
gonna
like
see this too, Draymond. No,
throwing
that's not
big
fair.
middle fingers to the crowd in Memphis as he was getting
That's not
ejected,
fair.
but
But you
whatever.
know what I mean.
Here's my thing. You could say right now, trade him, get rid of him. He's gonna be gone after the season anyway, but they have a pretty good squad here, and I think they should almost be considered championship favorites. You win the championship, you bring most of your core back. I think you deserve that consideration, and you're gonna be a worse team if you trade Draymond now. Like, you're not getting equal value back for him on the last year of his deal at this age. So, is there gonna be some animosity here? Yeah. Like, is the room gonna be a weird place? Yeah, but that happens. You have teammates who don't love each
Yeah,
other. We talked about this with Tatum and Brown. Like, you don't need to be best friends with your teammates to win, and this might even fuel something for them in terms of
yeah,
motivation
but
and
if Jalen knocked out Tatum, man, I don't know. It'd be different. I don't know if they
yeah,
could.
but once you
I
get
mean,
on the floor, you're playing, and, they got
right,
a really good team.
right. But again, you have to think about who we're talking about here, right? We're talking about Draymond, and we're talking about the Warriors essentially forgiving him because this was a fuck up. No matter what you say, like, no matter what people want to say about, we don't know what was said. No. Either way, no matter how you slice it, this was wrong. He shouldn't have done this. He's a veteran at this stage of his career. And with that being said, you go into the season now wondering if he's gonna improve, in terms of being a better teammate and not calling guys out. Does he continue doing the podcast? Do the Warriors hold him accountable and say, look, we don't want you doing that anymore? Or do they say, you're going to be suspended for 15 games? I mean, we don't know. The Warriors they got to do
That's
something.
the tough call, right?
It
Like, what's
can't
the
be light.
suspension gonna be?
Like, whatever they do, it can't be light. And whatever they do, it's gonna be important because if Jordan doesn't agree with it, if their locker room is split about the decision, I mean, it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot for them to go through. A big distraction. If it's a lengthy suspension, and a lot of people don't agree with it. So, and of course, Draymond has to come back with a different approach too, and he has to change his ways. So it's a big
Yeah.
test. It's a
I
huge
think
test.
it's a
And this
cool
guy,
off thing, right? Like if you send him away
yeah,
for a couple weeks, maybe he cools off,
yeah.
maybe
I
he
mean,
thinks
Kerr
it
said
through.
he's away from the team today. He's gonna be in practice tomorrow. They have a game on Sunday, so and he just wants them to play basketball and just get back to focusing on the regular season. But it's tough. It's a tough spot, especially with the contract, situation for both of these guys. And um, you know, one guy
Especially
is
the fact that he
obviously.
could have hurt Poole bad with something like that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, Poole,
I
I
was
could
literally
have.
just about to say one guy is in the beginning stages of his career. Some people would say, and this isn't good for his development. Obviously, right? It's just a lot for him to take in, and for everyone to just watch this video over and over again, millions of views across the U.S. and he's got to deal with that. So it's tough.
Yeah, and the video gets out there. Maybe that wasn't the case in the past, but that's the world now,
Someone
and
got the bag from TMZ, man.
that's the truth. Like the truth is out there now. What actually happened, and they're gonna have to deal with that. Now, Poole, you got to keep him. He's their young guy. He's their future. I get it. I get, yeah, and I don't love his game. I don't necessarily think he's gonna be as good as some people do, but
No, you're not a pool guy.
no, I thought a lot of his impact in that series was front running. Like Wiggins, Curry, Clay to some degree. Clay didn't shoot at his best in that series, but those were the guys I think that were setting a tone out there. Green maybe on the defensive end of the floor. Um, but Poole, he hits the half court shots and yeah, had a couple of runs there in some of the games where they were ahead. He's still young, right? I'm not going to judge him. In fact, like I might like him more than Tyler Hero. So that's a nice piece to have if you're already as talented as the Warriors are here. But they're in this tough position where they're paying $600 million in salary if they're going to keep everybody intact. So someone has to go here. And if you're thinking, all right, future growth, Poole has the most potential. Wiggins, even though he's a little bit older, he found his footing last year and was as good as anybody in the finals. So you got to keep him, I think. And wings are so important in the league now, too. Clay signed long term, so you can't really do anything there. And Green,
Yeah, Clay and Steph are they're locked in.
and Green's a free agent next summer if he opts out. So if he's asking for 160 million, I think he's going to be gone. Now, does that mean trade him? No. Like,
No, opt
I
in,
think,
and you cross that bridge when you get there. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you gotta milk this thing. You gotta
yeah.
keep this
You
core
have
intact.
you have a chance to win a champion. This could be like a last
Yeah.
dance after the punch. There was some beef on that Bulls team. We watched the documentary. Pippen sat out. They still won the championship.
Oh man, I love that documentary. I'm gonna rewatch
Yeah, I
it.
might watch that again soon. Aren't there a lot of parallels? And the cool thing is, I feel like
So good.
Curry has a lot of Jordan in him. And then you have Steve Kerr as the coach, who obviously played on that Jordan team. Like, there's some really cool parallels between those two teams. And then obviously, like, how impactful culturally Curry and Jordan were.
Right,
Um,
but the knock on Curry though, especially in the years that they won championships, was always that he sort of cools off in the finals, and that it's a well balanced,
not
not a well
last year.
balanced attack, but yeah. And then last year he shut up all his naysayers, all the people that used to say that, and now you wonder if he can keep that going, obviously, because that's the reason why they won. That was one of the greatest NBA Finals performances, especially the game clinching, game six.
Game
Win
four.
when he was unstoppable. There was nothing that the
Yeah.
Celtics could do to stop that, and that was Jordan-esque, in sense of just locking in the clutch. Obviously that game four was huge. He hit some huge shots down the stretch, just being that guy that is everyone's like, wow, there's nothing you can do to stop that guy. And that was the first time we saw him do that in NBA final stage.